Hey, this is Karen Coach's Corner Chats, and on the podcast, I have Adam Jones. Adam, where are you at? What are you up to?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Karen. So right now I am in the Academy of Sports Performance in Blue Ash. That's my full-time job right now. But in terms of coaching, currently I'm a head coach and just took on a director role at Cincinnati United Premier here in Cincinnati. And I'm also the head coach at Wyoming High School of our boys varsity team. Been there the past 3 years, and it's an incredible community, incredible school. So I feel pretty fortunate to be in all these spots.
What is it that drew you to Wyoming in the first place?
Yeah, my journey to Wyoming has been an interesting one. I started at Mason High School, which is where I played as a kid. I grew up in Mason, played for Paul Reedy my senior year, Jay Reuter before that, and then ended up coming back and early in my teaching career, started coaching at Mason, went on to Anderson, spent a little time at Thomas More College, which is now Thomas More University, and then I was working out at a gym in Fairfield, and the old Wyoming coach, his name was Steve Thomas. He's a fantastic man. He's actually the girls coach at Fairfield High School now. He came up to me and said that he was thinking about leaving Wyoming. He had been there for a really, really long time, had a lot of success, built up a really fantastic program. And he said, I'm about to resign. If there's anyone that I want to take this program over, I think it should be you. And to be honest with you, I didn't know much about Wyoming prior to that. We played Wyoming when I was at Anderson, but I got lost the first time I went to Wyoming to play. I had no idea where the school was. And the second time I was ever in Wyoming was for my interview with Jan Wilking. So it was kind of just fate a little bit. I was looking to get back into the high school game, wanted a good program, a good community. I don't think I knew the gold mine that I ran into when I took the job. And so I remember when I got the job, Scott Springer from the Inquirer contacted me, and you can look back at the article. You know, he asked, like, why Wyoming? That was the question. And in the article, it says, I have no idea why Wyoming, but I'm here now. I'm going to focus on making the best of the situation. And you know, I've found that life takes you where you're supposed to be. And I've found a lot of good human beings, good kids, good families to invest in. And I've found my purpose here.
What is it that drew you to coaching? Was it something like, were you in high school when you were playing? Were you like a leader on teams? What took you into this kind of role that you're in now?
Yeah. I think if you ask my high school teammates, if you would have taken a poll back in high school, who would be a soccer coach, Adam would be the last one that they would choose. You know, when I played in high school, my main sport was baseball, actually. And I played soccer as a secondary sport and kind of fun. I knew nothing about it. I didn't watch the Premier League. I couldn't care less about it. And so soccer was always just something I did with my friends, and I was athletic enough to be successful and to get on a field and play on a competitive team, but I wasn't great. And so I never thought I wanted to be a coach. I never thought I wanted to be a teacher. That was never the path that I was looking to go down. When I was a senior in high school, you know, because we work with seniors, you know, they're constantly thinking about the future and what they want to do. But the reality is none of us really know what we want to do. We're still trying to figure it out, man. And so when I was a senior, I was like, I just want to make a lot of money. Like whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to get out of Cincinnati. And so I ended up going to Indiana University. Didn't play there, wasn't even close, but went to Indiana University and I studied business. And I majored in accounting, and I had no interest in finance or accounting. In fact, I don't even like looking at my bank account now. It creeps me out. But I wanted to work with money because I figured if you worked with money, you probably made a lot of money. And so got there, started that track, was going to be a businessman, was going to make a lot of money. And what happened was I left a younger brother. So Alex was my younger brother. He was 2 years younger than me. And when he was 10, he was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is a disease in your intestinal tract. Basically, you just got to go to the bathroom a lot. And typically what happens is if you have Crohn's or you have colitis, you can be hospitalized for a little bit of time. It's a chronic condition. It doesn't go away, but with medication, you can live a pretty normal life. For whatever reason, we couldn't really find that medication for Alex, and Alex was in and out of the hospital for a really long time and started falling behind in school, couldn't play sports. Crohn's stunts your growth a little bit, so he was a little guy and started to fall behind there. And he started self-medicating with drugs and alcohol. And so, you know, I was 12 when he was first diagnosed. He was 10, and then we had, you know, 6 years of me growing up in a household with a sick brother, both physically and mentally and emotionally and all of those things. So when I went off to college, in a way, it was a relief. I was away from that. Came back after my freshman year, and Alex was in a pretty dark place and struggling quite a bit. And then that ultimately ended with his suicide on August 15th, 2009. So I was 19 and he was 17 at that time. And it wasn't then where I was like, all right, I want to be a coach, or I want to be a teacher, or I want to help lives. But it was then where my priorities of what success looked like changed a little bit. And I realized, you know, I had the opportunity. I feel like I had the opportunity to help Alex, and I didn't. So, you know, in a way, you blame yourself when bad things happen, which is unfair, but it's just natural. And so, you know, I said, I'm going to help people like I couldn't help my brother. And I started to brainstorm, how could I do that? And growing up throughout high school, all my teachers were like, Adam, you need to be a teacher. You need to be in education. You need to do this. You'd be perfect for it. And I was like, you don't make enough money, like, you know, that kind of thing. And finally, I took their advice, transferred to Miami University to be closer to home, and got an education degree at Miami University. And then when I student taught, I went back to Mason, and Paul Reedy was still coaching there. And he said, hey, you're going to be student teaching here. Do you want to help coach the varsity team? And I remember I was like, Paul, I was like, thank you, but I know nothing about soccer. I know nothing. And he's like, oh, you'll be fine. You're good with kids. And I was like, all right, we'll go for it. And so throughout that first fall, I student taught and I coached, but really it was watching Reedy do his work. And I learned a lot, and I invested in, you know, teaching mostly. I loved teaching English. I was teaching 9th grade English, and I found that I was connecting with kids, and I felt like I was making an impact. And then as I got deeper into coaching, I felt like that impact was greater. And that's not to say that teachers can't make an impact. They absolutely can. But I found from my experiences that coaching was where I could really develop the type of relationships that can change and impact lives in a really meaningful and positive way. And so I took it and ran with it. I started coaching everything I could. I coached middle school track. I was a basketball coach for Nagel Middle School in Forest Hills, even though I'd never played basketball. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a baseball coach at Turpin High School, freshman baseball coach. And so I was coaching whatever I could just to kind of develop, number one, my coaching philosophy. Number two, I just love being around the kids. I love competition. I love the opportunity to invest. And for whatever reason, soccer was the one sport that took hold. And I spent 3 years at Mason, and then the job opened up in Anderson. And at that point I was teaching at Forest Hills. I was young, I was 24 years old. And I said, Reedy, I think I'm going to go for it. And he said, have at it. And luckily I had a great AD in Chris Newton. And he took a chance on me as a young and unproven 24-year-old. And he gave me the start. And from there, it's, been a lot of learning and a lot of experiences and a lot of growth, but it's been path so far.
What was it like to go from player to fellow coach with Coach Reedy? What was it like to see it from the different side of things? And what were some of the things that he implemented at Mason that you took away and said, that's what I want to have in my program, like maybe you currently have at Wyoming?
Yeah, well, it was interesting because Reedy's first year at Mason was my senior year. And so I wouldn't say that Paul and I had a tremendous relationship. I loved Coach Reedy. I tried to make him uncomfortable all the time by every morning I saw him in school, and that's not the type of person he is. So we had a good relationship, but it wasn't anything deep. And then when I started coaching, I think I started to recognize what made him so successful. And a couple of the things that I took away was number one, his preparation for individual games was that I remember before our first game, my senior year, we're sitting down before the game, and Reedy hands out these papers to every single kid. And so we get them, we look at it, and it's a scouting report for our upcoming opponent. And that was something we had never seen before at Mason. And I remember we were just all looking around like, oh my gosh, like this happens, these things occur. And so his devotion to the kids and his devotion to the craft was pretty spectacular. So I think that was something that was a big takeaway for me. We try to prepare for every single game, and we make every game really, really important. And that sense of confidence that kids get from knowing that the coaches are working really, really hard for them, even outside of training, I think matters a lot. So that was a big thing. The other thing was just the sense of organization that he had. He had his schedules all lined up. There was a lot of clarity in the processes that he built. He had a way he wanted to play. The kids had their role. They understood what the expectation was for them on the field and off. He used logic instead of emotion when making decisions. Those are all things that, I really, really respect. And his competitive spirit, man, like Coach Reedy is going to be in the Hall of Fame here soon. And, if you look back, Mason's Division I state championship in 2013, I think is the one state championship we have in Cincinnati from the past 25 years in Division I. What he did was pretty phenomenal. And he kept that competitive spirit forever. And he still has it. He's on my staff at Wyoming now as my assistant coach. And so, I hope I continue to have that fire and that burn and that competitive spirit to want to win everything all the time. I think that really separates him.
What was it like that first year when you went to Anderson? What were some of the things that you look back now and go, oh, like what were some lessons maybe you learned or things that you did well?
Yeah, well, the Anderson job was an interesting one. So I was coming from Mason, and we just won the state championship, like I said, in 2013. I think in the 3 years that I was at Mason, Paul's teams went 55, 5, and 5. We won 3 straight GMC titles. We won 3 straight district titles. We won 2 regional titles during that time. I mean, I thought it was easy. This is just what you do. You get to high school and you win everything. And then I took over Anderson, which was not doing well. In the 3 years that I was at Mason and we won 55 games. Anderson won 9 games total in that time. They won 3 games, 3 games, 3 games in 2012, 2013, and 2014. And so we were taking over a program that was just in a really different spot. And so the big thing for me was, can we develop a culture within the building? And back then in 2015, culture was the buzzword. It was new. Now everyone knows what culture is, but back then that was kind of a new thing. So we were trying to build culture, and man, I was faking it till I made it on what we needed to do. And so we had 4 pillars that we tried to instill that the program has. It's hard work, it's commitment, it's competition, and it's brotherhood. And it started in the off season for us. So we developed a really intense off-season plan where we were in the weight room, we were getting fit, we were, doing a bunch of work that we felt like other programs maybe weren't doing. They probably were, but that was the message. They're not doing this, you are. We are making steps forward. This will pay off in the end. And so that was a big focus for us. But I look back at my first year at Anderson and I realized, I made tons of mistakes in terms of just player management and managing families. As a varsity coach, we coach soccer, but that's a small aspect of our jobs. And I remember taking over and I ignorantly thought that I could make everyone happy, parents and players included. And the first meeting, I said I had an open door policy. You can talk to me whenever you want. Nothing is off limits. And man, was that a mistake. We had a fantastic year. We won 11 games that year. We finished second in the league. We almost won the ECC after not winning a single ECC game for 3 years. We were ranked top 10 in the city after being ranked, I think, 28th the year before in the tournament. We had an 8 seed. We were doing really, really well, but I probably had 7 or 8 parent meetings about things that I look back at now, and I'm like, man, Adam, like that, those aren't things you meet about. Those aren't things you discuss. We just didn't set expectations well. So while we had success on the field, I think in terms of running a program, I had a lot to learn. So it's funny. We look back at what we've done in years past and we think, man, what could I have done with that team if I knew then what I know now? And if you're not thinking that, then you're probably not growing. You're probably stuck. But I look back at Anderson and I'm like, man, we had a lot of success, but what could I have done? It would have been spectacular.
The next thing on your journey was then you made the leap to the college game. What were some of the similarities and differences? And you just talked about Anderson and dealing with parents and all the little behind the scenes things. What was the difference between high school and college in your experience?
There wasn't much, to be honest with you. I thought going into the college game, it was going to be this humongous jump in terms of just you're dealing with 23-year-olds and what's that going to be like? And, these aren't kids anymore. They're adults and yada, yada. And they're still kids, man. Like that was the biggest thing that I found early on was, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, they have the same exact needs as our high school kids. And while, we get bigger and we get older, we still have the need to belong. We still need support. We still need love. We still need discipline at times. And so while the game was a little bit faster and maybe even more direct than what I was ever used to, in terms of dealing with people, it was pretty similar. Now, obviously, the recruiting aspect and managing that type of those roles and responsibilities were a totally new world for me. But when it came to the soccer, when it came to the management of people, when it came to relationships, it's all the same, no matter what level you're at.
You mentioned earlier with Wyoming that you're at now, and you referred to it as a gold mine or gold mine. What about Wyoming that, as you went there, not really knowing what you were getting into, what now have you realized, like, man, this is a great spot to be at?
It's the support of the community and the support of the parents and the support of the administration. I remember sitting in the interview with Jan Wilking, who Jan Wilking is in her final year as AD at Wyoming High School, and I've been blessed to have two fantastic ADs. Chris Newton at Anderson was he's one of the best human beings you'll ever meet in your life. If you go on the Anderson Redskins Twitter page, you'll see why quickly. Jan Wilking is maybe the best leader I've ever been around. She's just fantastic. So number one, it starts at the top. It starts with the leadership that Jan has. Jan supports her coaches like no other AD I've ever seen in my life. She is no nonsense. She's competitive, but she loves the kids. She's in this for the right reasons. She is one of the best. But when I was in that interview with Jan, she's like, oh, by the way, we're going to build an indoor facility at Wyoming called the Champion Center in the next 2 years. And I was like, where's that going to be? And she said, behind the stadium. And she explained it to me. I was like, how much is that going to cost? And she told me, and it was a lot. And I had just been at Anderson where we had to raise $200,000 to build a new weight room. And that was a process. And this Champion Center was a lot more than $200,000, tenfold. And so I was like, how in the world? And she's like, it's going to be privately funded. I was like, how are you going to do that? And she's like, we'll send some emails. And sure enough, within 2 years' time, we had a state-of-the-art Champion Center with a weight room that's better than most colleges in our area. We have an indoor turf facility that's about 40 yards by 30 yards that we can utilize whenever we want. There's team meeting rooms, there's a cardio room for our track and our cross country team, and a little hangout room. There's a kitchen. So the facilities are now incredible. So that's been fantastic, but the parental support has been good. And then we're in a situation too where we have we play a Division II schedule, so it's not like D1. D1 is another animal. There's you're playing the Centervilles of the world and the Masons of the world and the St. Ignatiuses of the world. Division II, we're just smaller, man. So the amount of talent, I wouldn't say the quality is lower. I would say the quantity of the quality is lower. And so it allows us to really focus on our individual kids. And that's been pretty fantastic. Our kids at Wyoming are moldable. They're super coachable. They're fantastic individuals. They care about academics. They care about their teammates. They work hard on and off the field. I've never seen a group that is so coachable. They're sponges, man. And that's been maybe the best aspect of coaching at Wyoming is you start somewhere, and then by the time you get to the end of the season, it's unrecognizable. And that's been really cool.
When we're talking about quality and quantity and all that, your team had a lot of success last year, winning a state title. What were some of the hidden gems of why you all were able to make that run and end up winning the title?
Yeah, last year was a unique year. I think, I've been here 3 years. My first year, we had an incredibly talented roster. I mean, incredibly talented. We had Cup kids. We had a bunch of kids from TFA. We had a lot of kids that played club at a high level. And we had an undefeated regular season. We won a league title. We made it to a regional final and ended up losing to PKs to Tippecanoe, who went on to win the state title. And so that was fantastic. The year after that, we had two players in particular, Ethan Herbert and Kobe Hosfeld. Ethan Herbert played club at a high level at TFA. He was a big, strong target forward, maybe the strongest soccer player I've ever seen. And then Kobe Hosfeld was this little slippery 10 or 7, 11. I mean, he was probably 130 pounds soaking wet. And those two, we called ourselves the two-headed monster. Everyone knew what Wyoming had. They had Kobe and they had Ethan. And if you could stop us, then you'd probably win. The problem is, it's really hard to stop. And so combined, I think they scored 40 goals. They had like 38 assists each. And Kobe was an All-American. Both of them were All-Region. It was an incredible year. And then we get to this year. And I think everyone looked at our roster and thought, this is the worst year Wyoming will have in terms of depth of talent. You know, we didn't have those superstars. We didn't have those guys playing at a really, really high level in club. So I even remember Brian Daniel's the head coach of Indian Hill, who's, you know, our rival. And we were talking before the season and he's like, who is going to score for you, Adam? And I told him everyone, but really in my head, I was thinking, Brian, I have no idea. Like I have no clue who's going to score a goal for us. And so it was in the beginning of the year, we said, the only way we're going to be successful this year is if we do two things really well. Number one, we work harder than everyone. Work rate can get you really, really far in this game and in this life. But in high school soccer at Division II, if you work harder than the opponent, you're probably going to win. It's just how it works. And you have to have a little skill around that. Number two, like we have to be selfless. So none of you are going to be Kobe. None of you are going to be Ethan. We're not going to have that stud on the field that's going to score 25 goals. We need 4 guys to score 10 goals this year. If we can get 4 to score 10, then guys, we have a legitimate shot. But it's not going to be because you have individual moments of brilliance. It's going to be us understanding what our identity is as a team, buying into that, buying into our role, having a team that can sub guys on and make an immediate impact in a positive way. And guys that buy into that role as well. If we have that, then we're going to be successful. And we lost more games than we ever had. We didn't win a league title. We lost to Indian Hill and Madeira. We tied Madeira in the league. So it was actually our worst season in terms of how we did in league play. We weren't the number 1 seed. Indian Hill was this year for Division II, rightfully so, because of the regular season that they had. But we just kept getting better and better and better. And by the time the tournament came, we felt pretty good about our chances. And at the end of the year, if you look at the CHL website, we don't have one guy in the top 5 in points. There's not one. We don't have the CHL Player of the Year. We didn't win a CHL title, but you know, you go to Wyoming now and there's the state championship banner right outside our turf, and it's because we're selfless and we worked hard and it was a total team effort. And that was such an incredible thing to see. So
how does one, now that bar has been set, how do you keep that drive to, like, because now this year you'll have a little bullseye on your back of like they're the returning state champs, so everyone's going to be gunning for you. How do you keep that, like even last year when you had those moments of struggle maybe in the league that they hadn't had in a couple of years, how do you continue to keep their heads up and keep grinding?
Yeah, like, you know, I remember before last year, I thought if we win a state title, when we win a state title, that's what I would always say. When we win a state title, it will happen. But when we win it, you know, what is it going to be like? Am I going to feel dissatisfied? Like, am I going to want to keep doing this, or am I going to look for the next challenge? And I didn't know the answer. In fact, I thought it would be, I guess I'm just going to look for the next thing. But I remember when this final 2 minute, we scored the game-winning goal. I mean, you were there. We scored the game-winning goal in like the final 2 minutes, and then it was very clear we were going to win a state championship. And I remember I sat down in Crew Stadium. I just sat down while everyone else was up and nervous, and I was just trying to soak it in. And that that 2 minutes and those 15 minutes afterwards where the kids were just so happy and filled with so much joy, and I saw tears, and they were hugging each other, and there was so much love on the field. I remember thinking, I want this again. Like, I want to feel this again. Like, I want to chase this feeling. And so I know that's going to be there. So for a selfish motivation, I still feel the desire to want to build on our success. And the focus for us has always been, can we be the standard? We want to be the standard in everything that we do. So we want people to look at Wyoming and say, this is what Wyoming does. This is probably how we should do it too. So it's not about how everyone else does things. We set the standard in what we do. And so now we have the opportunity to do just that, to continue to build on the success that we've had. And we want Wyoming to be a household name, like Bay Village is in the Division II world, like Summit Country Day is and was for the longest time, like St. Ignatius was, or is, I should say. They're crushing it, and so we're still working towards that. I don't know the answer to your question though. is until we go through it this year and we see what it's like returning as a state champion, and we see what the challenges are, I don't really know how we're going to handle it. And so we'll be learning on the fly like we always do, and we'll be adjusting, and we'll be, using every single opportunity as a learning moment. But what a privilege it is to be that team. To be the team that people are gunning for. And it's only going to make us better as we, play the season this year.
How helpful has doing and joining Cup and having the opportunity to coach in the spring? You've taken on this new director role within the program and what have you, because I know that's at the high school level that you're coaching at with those groups, and you pour into those players, and that's not even players from Wyoming. So how impactful for you as a coach, but even the impact that you're making on beyond just the whatever the 2.5 miles or square feet or miles that you guys have in Wyoming.
Yeah, it's Cup has been, I mean, that's a whole other aspect of my life, which is the club world. Cup has been something that's allowed me to grow a lot as a person and as a coach. It's probably been the most impactful area of my coaching development, is just being around really, really good coaches at Cup and learning and growing and seeing what that's like. It's also been fantastic being around really good players. I say I have the best job in the club world in our region, because I'm coaching the best players that are U17 and U18 in the Cincinnati, Dayton, Kentucky, Eastern Indiana, Columbus area. We have a kid from Bluffton that's 100-mile drive from training one way, that comes and trains. So I'm really, really fortunate to have that. But both Cup and Wyoming give me the opportunity to invest in young people and to meet them where they're at, and to help them get whatever they want out of their experience. For Cup, a lot of them, it's, I want to play at the highest level, and I want to play in college. I want to play professionally. And so I'm there to guide them, to help them try to achieve those goals. Within Wyoming, it's different. Some want to play in college, but most don't. Most just want to represent their community. Most want to compete at the high school level and play in front of their friends. And both opportunities for me are a way to teach kids selflessness and the importance of loving your fellow man, and what it means to be a great teammate, which is really just how to be a great human being, and taking those lessons and applying them later on in life. And so, both avenues have been a blessing for me.
The one thing that you've mentioned at a couple stops was you were out working out and you ran into the old Wyoming coach, and then just working out with and what have you. And I know I hear the weights behind you. How important has like you're taking care of yourself and staying physical and being active. And that's, again, another avenue for you to work with youth athletes when it comes to working out in the gym.
Yeah, well, I mean, from a selfish perspective, I need to, I pour a lot of myself into the athletes that I coach, and you can't pour from an empty cup. And so I'm the type of human being that I need to feel good in order to, be an effective person. I'll get grouchy if I don't have coffee, which I've been drinking this entire time, and I don't feel like, I've been active. So for me, just staying active, staying fit, is an important aspect of my life. And it's also, an example for the kids that, if coach is working hard, then we can too. I definitely can't do the things that they do in this gym though anymore. But that's all right. As long as I look like I can, I guess, is important now. In terms of, strength and conditioning in the soccer world, it's been an interesting journey for me. I didn't know what I didn't know when I first got into soccer, and so that first year at Anderson, I feel like if you're a young coach and you don't know what to do, then you go back and you think about what you did as a player and what stuck out in your mind. And I just remember, man, I ran a lot and I ran really hard and I was puking, and that's what hard work looks like. So remember that first year in Anderson, man, we ran the kids to death, and that was mentally tough, and that's what we needed, and this is what will help us win games. And I look back at that and, man, I was such an idiot. I mean, we were training kids to be cross-country runners, essentially, or SEALs. I don't know what it was. But we spent so much time without the ball that, like, yeah, we were fit, but we were also at our peak fitness August 1st. And then by the time October came around, the kids were dead. So now we look at, it's not the priority for our kids, lifting and conditioning isn't the priority, but it's something to supplement their development. And so our high school teams lift twice a week in season. And really it's a confidence booster for them. It keeps us healthy. We have a great strength and conditioning coach at Wyoming, Jeff King, who's also going to be our new AD that we're really excited about. And then our club teams train here at the Academy of Sports Performance in Blue Ash one time a week, which I think is very different than most club teams. Most don't have that strength and conditioning aspect. And again, it's about building strong kids. It's about giving them good, healthy habits that they can take on in their life, but it's also something they're going to do in college. So we want to prepare them for what it means to step into a weight room. But we don't win games because we're strong. We don't win games because we can run 2 miles in 12 minutes. Like, we win games because of what we can do with the ball. And that's been something that I've had to shift my thinking about. So I'll be honest, Kieran, at Wyoming, we don't run. We do zero conditioning. And I think that would shock people, because at Anderson, we ran a lot. And so that's been an interesting progression in my development as a coach.
It sounds like you have a lot of really, really good things going and growing. Do you have a plan in mind, coaching wise, of where you'd like to be, or like, are you going to continue to grow in the select side as you keep kind of budding and growing, maybe go bigger than here? Is there any aspect of you that wants to go back to college, or maybe do some pro, or are you just kind of, like you said, things just kind of happen for a reason, and I'll just, when a door opens, I'll see if I can go in it?
Yeah, I'm really happy with where I'm at right now. And so, that's number one, is just staying present and trying to do a really good job at the job I'm at. I think that's important. If you're constantly looking for what's next, then typically where you're at gets neglected. And so my focus is on, being the best coach that I can be for our cup teams that I'm the head coach of. It's being the best director for our coaches and our families at Cup, and then it's being the best coach I can be for our kids at Wyoming. And if I continue to do a good job there, then opportunities will open, and you end up, as you said, where you're supposed to be. In terms of like a 5-year, 10-year plan, I don't have one. I used to have that where I was constantly thinking about what's next and what do I want to do and what title am I going to chase. And I've found that that's not a great way to go through life. I think what's important is, are you making a positive impact today? And can you do it tomorrow? And do you have good intentions? And if you're continuously doing that for kids on a day-to-day basis, then things tend to take care of themselves. So no, I have no idea where I'll be for 5 years. I'd like to be the best. I tell people, they're like, what do you want your legacy to be? I was like, I want people to say I was the best coach they've ever come across. That's all I want. I want kids to think that I was a blessing for them in their lives. And when I pass away and I leave, I hope that's the message that people take away. He really, really, really cared about me as a player and a person, and he loved me. And I think if that's the message and that's the impact and that's the legacy that I leave, no matter where that's at, then I've done my job.
That is a perfect way to end this chat. This is Karen with Coach's Corner Chats with Adam Jones. I'm out.
Thanks.